Now I want to talk about child abuse. Right? I believe child abuse can be a mental issue. It means they're like a child in the mind, and that might cause child abuse. Um, Maybe they feel so ugly, the only things they can get to are the children that can cause child abuse. Or they're experimenting. Now, usually, and that's why you have girls and boys mingle from the start, because it's best to have problems or feelings that can occur, right, when it comes to self-ego and what they believe is pretty, right, is something that you've got to go through as a human being, as I've been through it as a human being. When you go from 18, right, and you hit that spot and you get classed as something else, and 5 years difference in certain areas doesn't matter. But if you're 5 years difference from 18 or 16 and you're 20, you see where some people start to say that, say a 20-year-old hooks up with a 6-year-old, that they're being a pedophile, as I've been accused for. Shit like that. But it's not. It's about the mind and the actions. As long as things are truthful, it's still not that bad, right? But then if you get a 16-year-old with 11-year-old, whoa, right? There's a difference. But then 11-year-olds shouldn't be doing what 16-year-olds are starting to get into, which is sexual feelings and stuff. So you start to use science and things to make sense of it. Right? And by 16, you've learnt most of the kiddie stuff. Right? And so usually you don't get too much of a deliberate sexual attack younger than that. So 11-year-old does to an 8-year-old. It's not technically a pedophile kind of thing, like the things that I've just mentioned before about an older man wanting and how they feel, right? And they should know better. They've had time and education. The young one just is using. Some people get sexual pleasures younger, right? Before they're even can create sperm and all these kind of things. And they play with their own selves. When you see a person go, playing with their dick and shit like that. Stop playing with yourselves. And so they might play around with each other, as people see all the time, and I've been talking about in history of people doing. But that's not pedophile action. That's learning, and then they get told, and then they move on, right? And if they learn that, they get to learn a bit easier about these rules, right? And then some of them don't, and then they do these actions when they're older, and then they get called pedophile because they didn't learn it earlier, right? But should they learn it earlier, or should they not learn it at all? That's the thing, that we've got to discuss this fairly throughout society, right, when it comes to pedophile, not just accuse. Like, I'm just getting accused. I've got people around me to just straight out accuse you because you spoke to someone you might look like something. Someone else said something, right? And that just makes that area get propaganda out of control, which is what humans are doing a lot these days. So I believe a society that I just heard when it comes to this clip about hiding people's pleasures, right, or sicknesses, definitely after education, is a sin, is a non-righteous sin, no matter how powerful they believe they are, because everyone's treated equal, right? And I believe that's righteous. You can't outbeat certain things when it comes to that area unless you put back in that some things aren't a sin, and that selfishness is good, and that you get to a point where you're a king and you can get away with anything. And as far as I'm concerned, that's no good, because how would you like it that you could have been a king later, and you might be, but then you get abused and used by another previous king, and then you don't even get to reach a king, right? Or do you have to become a king, be abused, become a king? As we've heard these Hollywood people say over in Hollywood, to become something famous, you got to suck a dick and shit, right? That's sad, and so that should never be protected at all when it comes to righteous ways, right? And fairness. As I bet you that king wouldn't have wanted to be raped. Right? Why are they doing it for? Is it for the self pleasures? You can get those same pleasures from any other creature, right? You just want to have the lookness and perhaps the tightness or something like that, right? Bigger power over them, domination, which is all pretty much sins. So, see, when it comes to what I'm listening to now with this clip, I agree with things. This is why I told someone just recently, Jehovah's Witnesses, that I'm a bit of a mix at the moment because I believe how they talk about the Bible, that there's a bit here, there, everywhere, and they're trying to get the Bible, and that's in one religion section, right? That all of them are like that. That it's corruption is set in over time, where we've hit at this point, and there is no, and everything's mixed up, and there is no one righteous way to get there that keeps moving on because as we change, rules need to change, ways will change, right? Sometimes you've got to be mean and kill, but there's got to be a righteous way of doing that and a really good reason why that makes you feel good. If you believe that if you're in that situation, would it be done to you? So whatever you're doing now, right, so you believe something's overpopulating, something's killing something, that you should go in there and kill it. Right? If you believe that, then that means that if an alien rocks up and tells you that you're killing something and it can prove to you that you need to go, just like you're trying to do, saying that horse needs to go because it's running over the water lines, right? The aliens need to eradicate you, and you go, no, then what does that mean? That means you're a hypocrite. That means you're just that sin, you're just the selfish thing. And if everyone tries to be like you, you can't. You can't all be that beach walker, right? That's why guys come over here, let me protect you. And that was a pot. Just pulling out the dishes here. Let me protect you, right? And that's all sins, isn't it? In these certain areas of righteousness, of balance to get along, because apparently righteousness in science gives us the best balance, right? More of plenty for everybody in their true form of where they need to be. See, everyone can have a job. As you learn, everyone gets a job in a position, right? And you just got to wait. No one can speed up things. You shouldn't, right? Unless you do get lucky. There's lottery, there's certain areas. But you shouldn't be able to be a person, I get to speed up because I just joined that guy because he just told me if you join us, you get to push this button, make 30 grand and go for a beach walk. Right? But then everyone can't do it. Right? And is there another job just as good for the other person like that? Is that balanceable? No, that just sounds like if you become them, you'll become the wolf now. You get to do what you want a bit more. You go to that beach. Where did that money come from? Just out of the thin air? Huh? No, they mine it. They deceive it. Right? And that's the same thing when it comes back to the pedophile thing, right? The kids and that. This is use science, education, certain areas. Perhaps we need to educate even better when we go to school about certain areas. Perhaps we can try to guideline, like I said, when it comes to kids. You see a kid hanging out, he's 11, hanging out with a 5-year-old, wants to become boyfriend and girlfriend. Perhaps we should give them a bit of education, but they're a bit far away at the moment, and they can wait till another time where they can reconnect when it comes to girlfriend and boyfriend, right? You're too far away. At a certain age, you should be more closer. And then after that, you can have the gap. It needs to be explained better and understood better. Otherwise, you just get propaganda everywhere. That's what I see today out there. This bubble says this bubble says that, this bubble... Where's the bubble that uses science? And humans are going, oh, we use science, science do this. But that's it becomes a bubble, right, in the end. Because some people say you shouldn't do it. But if you can do it, that means that you can, but should you? Is it the time to do that? Are you using that in the right area? Right? So first you always got to try to get the basics so you can always make the right steps, which is what humans will call it common sense, isn't it? So what's the basic common sense guideline that you believe so you can truck on to get the things right and then not run around between bubbles and fighting bubbles? Because if you're doing that, that is actually a stuck situation that goes round. It's a fight situation. I know. I can't come to a conclusion. And that's why you have battles and some things go extinct, as you can't come to a conclusion. So hopefully one day you get educated enough, as we say we are today, to try to get somewhere. But we've proved in history that we've perhaps gotten here, and we can still prove today that we can get here, go backwards and get here again. All right? And that's sad. So hopefully, anyway, I've gone way off track when it comes to pedophiles and shit, but they certainly should be dobbed in. And what I just heard on that clip, I'll show you roughly the time, is not a good thing. You know? So if you're doing something that contradicts yourself a bit, right, in certain areas, how are you going to teach people about what you believe is right over there? And when it is, they don't want to believe it because you're trying to say you're the man, when definitely when you're saying you're the company or the top, right? But then you're contradicting yourself. You can't do that being there. So you need basic priorities so you don't contradict yourself in that. But yet, what do we see? We see shh. We see lawyers. We see, oh, that bubble, yeah, whatever, walk away. We see that. And what is that? That's immaturity, isn't it? It's still learning. We see that. You know, you get learned one thing, and then told later on, sorry, that was just a fantasy. Here's the real truth of the world. We're seeing that. And that causes mental issues. Right? That means you've got to tell people sometimes at a certain point that what you did was at that time to make you feel good because you didn't understand. But once you get to a certain area, you've got to tell them about Santa Claus. As soon as they can understand that Santa Claus might not be true, you didn't know it, and they've got that feeling, try to deceive them, man. You start giving them mental issues. And that's what's happening out in society out there with all the propaganda. Mental issues, everyone's getting confused. You haven't got the guidance. And so everyone's screaming out for that guidance, isn't it? Because we haven't got it, but we have got it. That's the saddest thing, as we have people discuss that, and we're just going to get all that knowledge in the right area to the right spots so it gets passed out instead of all about coolness and money and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, check it out. Bang it on the list. Like I said, I don't usually like listening to certain things these days in these certain areas as, once again, the devil tries to get in to create something, to make a plan. So if I'm listening to something that was predicted, and then you listen to the story too much of it, then they'll say you're playing it out. Right? So the best way to see a prediction is not to really know about it too much and just be yourself, kind of thing. Right? But you can't do that when you've got these other things going, well, you do this. Well, even if you were playing it out, this is what I keep telling people, if you want to be a puppet, that's okay. Be the puppet the right ways. Because technically you're all a puppet anyway when it comes to wars. Right? And as you're learning, you're like a puppet. Right? But what type of puppet are you? That's what you got to think about. Huh? So no one's really copying no one because we technically all are copying. Once you're a collective, you copy. Right? And then you have individuality, but you've got to have the copy of the same standards, not propaganda, isn't it? But anyway, one day we'll get there and see you later. So I hope you understand when it comes to children kind of thing. Right? Because I know some people that didn't get to play around, didn't get a girlfriend, didn't get anything, and then some people did. Some people gone too far. I heard cases where people were doing stupid shit, right? You're having sex and all these things. It's children out in the open and constantly playing with their dick right in front of their parents. It can go bad, right? But there's always a point, an understanding, right? A learning process. And we need steps, and everyone's equal to that learning process. And you try to learn it in certain areas. And some of it we do need to learn, which is what we talk about. Best to learn as a kid than to learn it later on. Right? Best to experience it as a kid. Best to get along with boys and girls than to be in a boys' school or a girls' school. I think that's wrong because it screws up an area. Right? They try to fix one area, yeah, because boys that got rid of all that sexing that they should learn about, really. You've got to be around it. Be around things, be around a smoker. The best way to know if someone really won't smoke and knows the right rules, right, and has the right life, won't smoke anyway, right? And the best way to find out about it is to have the smokers around. If they're weak and could smoke and you've got the smoker around and then they go smoke, well, they're not learning, right? They're just copying. It's not their fault. It's not the smoker's fault, right? He did his choice. He even told you probably not to do it, and you've already seen not to do it, right? But everyone gets the choice. Everyone does things because they believe it helps them usually, right? And that's the choice they've got. And that's what they chose. Perhaps it's the only choice they've got, which is sad, which is why I talk about with marijuana and drugs and all that kind of stuff. Right? But anyway, have a good one and see you later.